Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back with another weekly astrology update, episode 281. I was wrong again last week, but hopefully in 2026 I will be correct with my episode numbers. We are inching closer to 300. And this marks 6 years since I launched the original podcast, the Hair Healer Podcast, in January of 2020. The first 20 episodes were episodes with my clients at the hair salon. So if you ever feel overzealous and want to go back, check those out. Just don't judge I think I was pretty good back then, but compared to now, not as good. So this is the last episode of 2025. Goodbye, 2025. I know I am ready to let that go. I normally don't say this to the end of the episode, but thank you guys for supporting me. People who have been my OG supporters since 2020 or have hopped along in 2021 when I changed my podcast episode to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. Either way, the people that are just joining my show this year, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's go out with a bang. The best way to support me, because I'm fully self-supporting. I don't ask for donations. I don't have a Patreon. Is that even still a thing? I just do this because I love to do it for you guys. So the best way to support that is to rate, review it, subscribe. Most of you already do, and send this out to a friend. You guys have helped this podcast grow extraordinarily just through that. I haven't been able to post too much on my social media because the hair world has been crazy, as you guys know. It is always crazy at this time, but thank you for my clients for making it wonderful. So this is my end of the year episode. I'm going to talk about this week's transits and what are the big themes of 2026. Something that I keep saying is, where am I going? One of the things that, sorry, my kid just texted me. I was like, wait, what? Got distracted. So one of the things I've been talking about with people this year is that we're moving from water year, a very strong water year, into a fire year. I'm going to explain what I mean by that later on this episode and throughout the episode, but here's a little funny story about moving from water to fire that the universe, that the elements did not want me to forget. So like I said, I've been so excited about moving out of this water, and I was taking a bath the other day and looking at my 2026 Honeycomb transit calendar. Shout out to Honeycomb. I am not a paid advertiser for her, but I have been buying her calendars for 4 years now, maybe even 5 years, I think. And it's great because I have a calendar that is my own personal transits, how those show up, as well as the daily transits right in front of me. So yes, I have it on my computer, but I love having like a concrete calendar right in front of me. So either way, I was taking a bath and I was going through the 2026 transits on this calendar, and I was just getting really excited, ready for this fire, and I dropped my paper calendar into the bathtub. It's a very thick paper calendar. I don't know what it has on it. So only the bottom left-hand corner got damaged, and it's dry, but it's still damaged. But I instantly started laughing when it happened in the bathtub because the universe was saying, don't be so quick to throw away the water for 2026. The water blessings are coming and still leaving its mark on the first half of 2026. So I thought I would just tell you guys that because I have been like, we're moving into fire, we're moving into fire, we're moving away from this crazy emotional 2025 year for everybody, and boop, the universe was like, just wait, it's not all bad. There's still going to be some water in 2026, but it is going to be the water blessing. So the last big, we could say one of the bigger transits of 2025 that's we're really going to be feeling is going to be Mercury in Sag squaring Saturn in Pisces on Tuesday the 30th. Of course, we're ending it with a water square. What else would we be ending this year with? But this will be the last mutable water square. So square is friction, and with water, emotional friction, between Mercury, who does not work at its best in Sagittarius, and Saturn in Pisces, where it has been for a very long time. So again, I believe this is going to be the last square with any planet while Saturn finishes the rest of the almost 3 years in Pisces. That's number one. I was thinking about this morning and I'm looking ahead and I'm like, wait, I don't think there's any more squares to Saturn and Pisces until Saturn ingresses into Aries. So that's pretty great. So hopefully this is the last square that is happening. And this is going to be the last square in a while for Mercury and Saturn in general, we could say that. So we love that. Now, so let's say one last feeling for this last square that's ended with a big bang. So we're going to have one last small feeling of resistance, confusion, indecision, blur of boundaries or not being able to hold on to them, taking on responsibilities of others, or just a heavy responsibility that we feel weighted down on. For the most part, the lesson that has come over these last 3 years, over those things that I just named, resistance, confusion, indecision, blur of boundaries, responsibilities, heavy responsibilities, the last 3 years, we've really worked through that, especially my mutable energy, my mutable signs. So now, any little bit of resistance that is left is you ironing out the kinks. Again, for my mutable placements, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces. Now, in some cases, there will still be more to be played out. But if there is, because we're not done with the eclipse season between Pisces and Virgo, you should be now able to face what's left with much more wisdom and much less confusion and much less resistance. So any of those little kinks, just remember that you might have a little kink up that gets your emotions in a tizzy, but we are now going to harness that wisdom that we have learned over this last year. And again, if there is anything left after this year, you will be attacking it. You will be facing it with much more wisdom, less confusion, not as much reaction. Saturn will ingress back into Aries on February 13th. So we got a good 6 weeks left of Saturn in Pisces for my mutable energy and in general mutable energy, because we do feel Saturn on the collective and within us. So let's make the best of this. One of the reasons why I had said that we're moving from a water year to a fire year, because Saturn transit. Saturn is a very slow moving planet that stays in a sign for a while, a very long time, 2.5 to 3 years. So when it transits, it tends to bring bigger things, or not just necessarily bigger things, but slower things that take a whole 2.5, 3 years to work through, to transit through. It's a slow process. Saturn is slow, so the lessons, the karma that Saturn brings are also slow. The slower the planet, the bigger the lesson, I like to say, compared to the faster moving planets like Mercury. Mercury is going to bring you the smaller in the day lessons, like a flat tire and how you handle that with your reaction. Or let's take it a little more positive, when you really nail a speech that you had to give your bosses or your coworkers, and it's just like, wow, that feels really good. And maybe it's not a speech to like keep your job or just get somewhere. It's something Mercury. It's very mercurial. It's something small, but that positivity gives you that boost. So when Saturn plays around and comes around into a sign, like I said, it is much bigger and it's a much slower process, and it rules over those larger themes in our life, especially our karmic themes that we have, our lessons that we're here to work through, our awareness that we are here to gain. So that means there's a group of signs that Saturn will dominate when he enters a new sign. So the mutable signs for the last 3 years have just been dominated by Saturn. Saturn has been in Pisces, ingress March 7th of 2023. Doesn't that feel like forever ago? So think back to where you were in life. And again, if you really want to see what this Saturn is about, look to what whole sign house does Pisces rule in your birth chart, as well as where is Saturn in your birth chart. Look to that and see what were some of the lessons, what were the awareness. And if you really focus in and look in, you will really be able to see the transition of yourself within your own, karmic stuff that you're here to learn. So we did this summer have a short stint for 3 months, which I want to add had a square to Jupiter in Cancer, which didn't make the beginning of Jupiter in Cancer as easy as a lot of us had hoped for. I know I was really propping up Jupiter in Cancer, and I think the second half of Jupiter in Cancer is going to go much better than the first half, but I wasn't alone. I was listening to the Nightlight Astrology podcast, and he had a few people on there talking, and they were all saying basically how all of us kind of dropped the ball a little bit on Jupiter in Cancer at the beginning of that transit, and I will agree. I thought it was going to be much more emotionally positive than it was, but I guess that beginning square to Saturn in Aries really held back the positivity. So now these two are sort of separated for a little bit. There was the Grand Water Trine, and so I feel like since the Grand Water Trine, the second half of Jupiter in Cancer is going to be delivering much more positivity, much more wisdom, much more of those Jupiter in Cancer blessings that we had hoped for in the summer. So hold on, don't give up for that. Saturn in Pisces, though, let's talk about that, didn't bring the discipline that Saturn is used to. Pisces and no offense, because I love y'all, and every sign has its shit, but Pisces aren't disciplined. My Pisces who have a Jupiter in Scorpio, your ruling planet, but other than that, they are the least disciplined sign, in my opinion. Saturn, and I have a lot of Pisces in my life, okay? I have a 7th house ruled by Pisces with a Mars in there. I have a lot of Pisces in my life. Saturn, remember the planet Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius, loves discipline, structure, concrete energy, hardworking. None of those are Pisces traits. However, Pisces brings a lot of good. There needs to be when opening up to other realms, ideas, feelings, understanding the world in an energetic, intuitive way, all the things that Pisces are very natural at. Almost like we had to leave one reality behind. In your own personal life, it might be this ideology or the way you look at something in your life. It might not be an entire picture, like your entire life story, but some sort of realm, some idea that you had to leave behind before Saturn entered Pisces, and now you are being so much more open to it, right? Open to the world of energetic, intuitive understandings, which are, again, all the things Pisces are natural at. They rule the end of the zodiac. They cross into the other worlds, which is often why they are lost. So almost, again, we had to leave one reality behind, and we had to take on a whole new mindset and belief. However, that belief could have been hard to let go of. So these last 6 weeks of Saturn and Pisces is going to be really you opening up to this new belief system that you had to take on, or this new idea, or this new realm. You're not looking at something so black and white anymore, which was really great with Saturn and Pisces. It opened us up. Saturn is used to that black and white thinking. Saturn loves that black and white thinking. So when it was in Pisces, it was like, oh my gosh, everything is a rainbow, or it's gray area, or it's this or that. So hopefully Saturn and Pisces, for a lot of people, especially probably my more fixed people, I hope that you are able to open your mind to other constructs or concepts or just other ways that the world is besides 3D right in front of us. Now, we are at the end, like I said, of this, and Saturn will enter Aries on February 13th. I forgot I didn't write that. What did I say? I think Saturn enters Aries on February 13th, sorry. And then, right before Valentine's Day. And then on June the 30th, Jupiter ingresses into Leo. And there will be a grand fire trine on August 31st. So boom, there are two of our Aries. We also, remember, have Neptune at the end of January, and we'll cover that moving into Aries, fire sign. Then we have Saturn ingressing into Aries, fire sign. Then we have Jupiter ingressing into Leo, fire sign. And then we have the nodes ingressing in the summertime into Aquarius, and then the South Node into Leo. So boom, more fire. It's very nice, though, that we're getting two grand water trines with Saturn and Jupiter. I'm kind of loving that. So we had the grand water trine in the beginning of November, and then we will have this grand fire trine again with Jupiter and Saturn, and then Jupiter will move ahead into Virgo, where they'll be separated for a while, and we won't be having those trines. So again, good news for my water and my fire. So I am excited about that. Both, though, will feel very different. The water trine was about feeling and recentering our feelings, getting our emotional state where it needed to be, healing, and all the healing that we needed, especially at the end of 2025 when dealing with all the watery energy that we had of 2025. Now, and that's how that sort of felt like, okay, my feelings are valid. Okay, I understand. Okay, I'm healing. Okay, I'm not mad anymore. Okay, I don't have resentment anymore. Those were the water healing. Now, this grand trine in fire will be about building and expanding your life with passion and not feeling weighed down by your emotions because you healed them from last year with that grand water trine. Feeling passion, feeling excitement again. I'm sorry, but water does not bring that much excitement unless it's painful, right? It's either calm or it's emotionally painful. Fire brings a lot of excitement and passion and drive. So again, 2025 was a lot of lost feelings for a lot of people and not knowing which direction. Fire is going to have that purpose. It's going to have that. So we do have, like I said, we have the nodes this year entering Aquarius and Leo, though we still will have one last eclipse we have the Virgo eclipse, but then in Pisces, even though they will have ingressed into Aquarius and Leo, we will still have one more Pisces eclipse around that grand fire trine at the end of August. So like my calendar in the bathtub, wants me to remind everyone that we aren't totally escaping the water of 2025. However, 2025 doesn't want us to forget about the wisdom and the lessons gained before we jump right into fire. So there is going to be this crossover that we can enter fire more emotionally grounded, hopefully. So again, the beginning of 2026, don't forget totally about the water, like the bathtub experience. There will be this crossover, which is good, because if not, we're going to jump right into that fire, and then that's a whole other emotional upturn, and forget about the wisdom we learned from all the emotional bullshit of 2025. So luckily, the first few months will be this nice integration between water and fire, if you allow it, if you're open to it. I can say these things, but if you stay stuck in the same old mindset, if you stay stuck in the same old emotional bullshit, you're not going to feel the things you're meant to feel. So don't forget about that. I give you the wisdom, but you also have to take the wisdom and do some shit with it. So that's talk about, and we're going to end this episode with the full moon in Cancer on Friday, the 3rd of January. Yay, it's the first full moon of January with the conjunction and energy of Jupiter. However, I want to remind you guys, last year, the first full moon in Cancer was conjunct Mars retrograde. So we got a Jupiter retrograde, Mars retrograde. So again, we're starting 2026 off much better with this full moon alone than we did of last year. The first full moon had a conjunction to Mars retrograde in its worst place, and now we're starting the year with Jupiter retrograde conjunct the full moon in its best place. So again, we started the year in 2025 with Mars at its worst debilitated place and a full moon in Cancer, and we are kicking off this full moon in Cancer on the 3rd with Jupiter retrograde, where Jupiter is exalted and works at its best in Cancer. So right away, I promise you guys, it's going to be so much better than 2025, especially for my water and cardinal placements. So we're going to start this off. This is going to be an emotional restart. Again, we are getting our emotions in line, so we are not taken by storm again in 2026. So it's an emotional jump start, this full moon. Evaluate how you want to show up emotionally in 2026. What were some of the lessons that you learned in 2025 when it came to your emotions? What emotional reactions do you want to leave behind in 2026? And on the flip side of that, what emotions did you open up to in 2025 that you want to keep? All right. So there is like, hey, let me dial in on this emotional reaction, but there's also, ooh, what busted open in my emotions? What do I want to feel? You have to understand your emotions and control them. I always tell my kids, if you don't learn to control your emotions, they will control you. Now, that is said perfectly from a Virgo moon and rising mom, myself. I'm sorry I can't help myself, but it is true. I'm always like, you better get control of your emotions because they will control you. So I'm telling you guys that like I tell my kids. Get control of your emotions. Get it together, or you will go be running off of cortisol and other bullshit that some of those emotions bring. Now, I know that I also, as a Gemini sun, Gemini Mercury, Virgo moon, Virgo rising, did open myself up to some emotions, but I never let them control me too much. So the lessons and the understanding of your emotional state in 2025, understand them, get to know them, don't run from them, and understand your reactions so you can control them in 2026 so you don't get caught up in the fire of all of it. Because I'm telling you, if you don't get control and a deeper understanding of your emotions, the fire will take you into a whole different emotional trajectory, you could say. So this is a good night to clear out your emotions one last time. Put on that country music. Have a good cry. I'm telling you, when I need to cry, I have a whole list of the saddest country songs. I will gladly send them to you. Write a love letter to yourself. Write a love letter to someone else. You don't even have to give it to them. You could just write it to get your emotions out. Burn up past emotional entanglements. And I don't mean burn them. Okay, I got to say that. Don't go burn anyone. But burn a string. Take in a ritual to burn a string to remove someone, or maybe something that you had of theirs or that reminded you of them that you just can't. You're so emotionally lost when you think of them. Remove that. Go to a spa, relax. Too many emotions, emotions too many times, and mostly all the time, I guess the hard emotions will stress your body out. All right. So even the sad ones, even the overthinking ones, even the indecision ones, they are just as bad as anger, to be honest with you, because that stresses your body out. Understand your reaction, and also understand that the only thing you control is your reaction. You cannot control anybody, anything, any situation except for how you react to it. And that's the biggest thing you need to take in 2026 to control your action. Nothing else. And the more you accept that, the more you surrender to that, the more you understand that, the easier life gets. And whatever situation you're trying to fix, manage, and control end up working out almost seamlessly when you don't control it and you only control how you react. I have promised you time and time again, it absolutely does. Woo! So guys, this is, I promise you, going to be a much better 2026. There should be much more hope. There should be much more excitement. It is not going to be way down this last year is. So, but like I said, reflect, understand, or you're just going to be taken by storm in this fire year by all those emotions you didn't control. Have this week coming up to reflect, to bring peace into your home, to bring calmness. And remember, nothing is that big of a deal. Most of the shit you're not going to care about. What is that saying? 5 weeks, 5 years, 5,000 months. I don't know. It's not like that, but it's true. Most of the shit that you are going to care about now, you're not going to care about next year. Or the things this time last year that you were worried about, you didn't care this year. So let that shit go. Understand your emotions and don't react. And you're going to have a fabulous 2026. I will be back next week with a new episode and to see what we can expect for the upcoming weeks in January 2026. I love you all. I wish you guys a prosperous, exciting, healthy, and happy 2026. And I'll be back next week. Thank you again for always listening and tuning in. I love you all and goodbye.